Welcome to the 2007 Chapel Hill Carrboro Board of Education Candidate Forum, hosted by the PTA Council and the League of Women Voters. I'm Mark Peters, Chair of the PTA Council Legislative Advocacy Committee. Tonight's forum will be moderated by Vicki Boyer of the League of Women Voters. Volunteers include Erin Benavides, Charlie Buckner, Jane Kerwin, Kaylee Peters, and Mark Terhorst. Thanks to Monique Velasquez for operating, actually Dan is operating the cameras tonight. We arranged it with Monique. And the Town of Chapel Hill for the meeting room. Viewers may submit questions during this forum via the link on www.ptacouncil.com. And they've worked it out, I think, so it'll show up on the bottom of the screen for those viewers who are viewing the live broadcast. In addition to the forum tonight, the PTA Council submitted 5 questions to candidates running for Chapel Hill and Carrboro town government positions. The Chapel Hill candidate answers are now available on ptacouncil.com. The Carrboro candidate answers will be available by Friday. I just want to share with you some background. The mission of the Parent-Teacher Association is to support and speak on behalf of children and youth in the schools, in the community, and before governmental bodies and other organizations that make decisions affecting children, to assist parents in developing the skills that they need to raise and protect their children, and to encourage parent and public involvement in the public schools of this nation. Tonight's forum will be run in accordance with recommendations published by the state and national PTAs. It's important to note that neither the PTA Council nor the League of Women Voters endorse candidates. We're simply running this as information for voters to be educated. The format that we'll be using tonight is as follows. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for an opening remark. Questions will be asked of each candidate. The first responder will be given 1 minute to respond, and the subsequent responders will be given 30 seconds. And we had talked about a variable length, but I think we're just going to stick with a simple amount. And then we will give each candidate 1 minute for the closing remark. And folks in the audience, Kaylee in the back will hand you cards if you need them, and she will take them up. So just hold your cards up, and she'll pick them up and bring them up front. And now I'd like to introduce Vicki Boyer, who's going to moderate tonight's session.
Thank you, Mark. You said everything I was going to say. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I work with the League of Women Voters of Orange, Durham, and Chatham counties. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit political organization. We work to ensure the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. We try to provide citizens opportunities to learn how their government works and to be informed on the issues they face when they go to the voting booth. You can find more information about our league on our website, lwvodc.org. It's a lot of fun. So Kaylee's back there. Raise your hand when you've got a question on a piece of paper. If you wave it in the air, Kaylee will run down and grab it from you and pass it along to us. I'd like to ask everyone to be a little cautious tonight using acronyms, that there are things well known amongst people who work on the school board or in Lincoln Center, and they are not well known to every parent in the district. So if you're going to use an acronym, please say it out at least one time so everybody knows what we're saying. And everybody, turn off your cell phones. Even when they have cute little beeper sounds, turn them off for us, and we will get going. The first question we want to ask, and I think we'll start with Ms. Bedford down here and go down the row of everybody, involves the use of computers in our school system. They have become widespread. The computers that we have. What? Oh, we are going to get you all an opening statement first. I'm ready to talk about computers. Let's start with a 90-second opening with Ms. Bedford, please.
Good evening. I'm Jamesetta Bedford, and I am seeking re-election to the Board of Education. I currently serve as chair of the board and wish to work for 4 more years to carry out current initiatives and continue our progress towards improved academic achievement for all students. I think that planning for growth, improving achievement, improving special education, and ensuring that our schools are safe are key issues facing the district. I've worked closely with the county commissioners the past 2 years to develop a more collaborative relationship, to improve the budgeting process, adopt construction standards for both school districts, and learning much more about county government. I served as the initial board liaison to the Special Needs Advisory Committee, reformatted into a parent-led advisory group, and am very excited to see the group work closely with parents, staff, and schools to make thoughtful, measured recommendations for improvement in our EC operations and services. I am an advocate for all children and would like to further professional learning communities, make our high schools more nurturing, develop our partnership with Frank Porter Graham Child Development Center so that our preschools are the very best, and continue to work on policies that improve the working conditions for our teachers and staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wallach.
I'd like to thank the PTAs and the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. I met Juan Sanchez over 30 years ago after he argued his way into my homeroom class in the South Bronx where I was teaching. His mother, sister, and brother had just arrived in New York from Puerto Rico, and because of his limited English, he was assigned a class for children not proficient in English. He wouldn't accept that. Over the class year and years following, Juan and I became friends. I went to his college and law school graduations, and in 2004 he asked me to be one of 5 speakers at his induction as a federal judge. Last week he called me to tell me that his oldest son just passed the bar. Anyone who has taught knows what a powerful influence a teacher can be in a child's life. It's an extraordinary yet humbling experience. Our district has wonderful teachers, wonderful students, and a proud history. But we are not without significant challenges. 8 of 13 elementary and middle schools did not make adequate yearly progress. We have a dropout rate to be proud of until you look closely at the figures and find that most of the dropouts are African Americans and Latinos. Each year we have a tooth and nail fight with the county commissioners over budget, but we're not even sure whether we're getting a decent return on the $115 million we spend on programs and services. Quality varies among schools, and they often house distinctly different children. Sadly, children's educational opportunities depend on which school he/she attends. We've done better in the past. We can do better in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Streeter.
Good evening. My name is Annetta Streeter. I come before you as a candidate for the Chapel Hill-Carrboro City School Board. I have served on the board since June 2006, gaining experience as I completed the term of resigning member Ed Sechrist. This appointment has given me the opportunity to learn about the operations of the district and become familiar with the board's activities. The past year has been challenging yet fruitful. The board has made progress in meeting the educational needs of our diverse population, but much work remains to be done. I want to help the board to examine ways in which we can meet these needs while being good stewards of our resources, given a growing climate of limited financial resources. My husband and I have been residents of this wonderful community for almost 20 years, where we are currently raising our children. Prior to serving on the board, I was active at my son's school, serving on the Frank Porter Graham School Governance Committee, for which I was parent co-chair for 2 years. I also served on the district's Curriculum Advisory Council. I will continue to bring to the board an outlook and approach that draws upon my educational and work experiences with diverse populations. This is based on established principles of learning and best teaching practices. I support professional development and accountability and community outreach to underserved populations. You can count on me to be the voice of those whose voices are not heard as the board continues to face some of its greatest challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Burrows.
I want to thank the PTA and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. I'm proud to say that I've been a member of the PTA for 11 years and of the League for 18 years. Every student matters. This is my core value. Every student matters. Each child in our district must graduate with the skills and knowledge necessary to take the next step toward their dreams. We must strive to ensure that all Chapel Hill-Carrboro graduates are prepared to be productive members of their communities. This district has been very successful educating high-achieving students, and we must keep that up. But we must also focus on other students, African American, Latino, economically disadvantaged, special needs, and average students who are in danger of falling through the cracks. We need to make sure they're all growing academically so that eventually all subgroups, including high achievers, will be the best in the state. I've volunteered in our schools for 10 years, compiled the district's history, and have chaired a school governance committee, giving me unique insight and knowledge of the system's strengths and weaknesses. I've dedicated my career to youth services and my volunteer efforts to my children's schools. Serving on the school board will combine what I've learned in both venues to help make sure that our schools are the best possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Kelly.
Hi, my name is Mike Kelly, and I want to thank the PTA Council and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. I was elected to the board in 2003 and am now completing that term. I want to give you a little history of where I come from. I moved to this area with my wife in the mid-1980s after we finished school. We were away during a big chunk of the 1990s, during which time I served in the Public Health Service. And then we returned to this area in the late 1990s and have been residents of Chapel Hill since then. I'm a physician scientist at Duke and the Durham Veterans Affairs Hospital, and my wife and I have 4 children, and each of those are at different levels, one in college, one in high school, one in middle school, and one in elementary school. So we have a pretty broad personal perspective on education. During my time on the board, we've gone through quite a few different programmatic reviews, policy changes, and quite a few meetings. Some of the highlights of that time have been included high school reform. We've opened Carborough High School in a new building after finished planning and building that school. We've revised a number of different programs, including the Gifted Education Plan was revised twice. I've co-chaired a number of redistricting committees. My priorities are improving student achievement, for which I think the focus should be on high-yield instructional methods and using evidence-based selection of programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all. And this is the first question that I was so excited about, I was ready to cut you all off at the knees to get to it. This question involves the use of computers in our school system. The average age of computers in our schools is 5 to 6 years old. With the budget limitations we constantly face, how do we manage to update this equipment? And the corollary, or second part of the question is, some students do not have computers at home, let alone Wi-Fi connections. How do we create equitable computer access for all our students with this kind of a situation? Textbook publishers often provide Windows-based CDs to students for use on a subject matter, but with students not having computers at home, how do we help create a situation where everyone can study? Mr. Kelly, let's start with you, and you will have 90 seconds to answer. Is that correct, Jane? You get 60 seconds to answer, and everybody else gets 30 seconds to say something that he didn't already say. And Jane down here is going to wave a card at you when you're almost out of time.
So the aging computers are a major problem. The Technology Advisory Committee has discussed this for some time, which I'm the board's liaison and have been for 4 years. Recently, there was a proposal brought forward to the board, which is part of the capital improvement plan to update the computers, and that plan extends out over approximately 6 years to update the current computers. I'm a very strong advocate of using technology, both by students and staff. Staff need to have additional access space. Their allocation now is really inadequate. And I also believe that they need to have laptop computers in order to be able to access all the resources and prepare the instructional lessons that they have available. The district also needs to be sure that students do have access to computers. We've recently discussed this at the board. We can't provide, I don't think we can provide all that we can, but we need to partner with the towns to be able to provide connectivity and volunteer programs to provide the hardware.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
Mike, I think, gave us thorough analysis of where we are in terms of the computers in the schools. I'm real concerned about what a lot of people refer to as the digital divide. My children, I think, use the computers and the internet nearly every night doing their homework, and I often wonder what's it like for the kid who doesn't have a computer in their home. East Chapel Hill High School had a major fundraising campaign to raise money to help students get equipment, but I believe the challenge is getting people to help maintain them. So I think that's something we need to continue to tackle.
Okay. Ms. Streeter.
The board is aware of benefits of technology to academics. We're living in a world that is growing increasingly dependent on this technology. All levels of education are benefiting from enhanced instruction, data management, and communication. With the necessary upgrades and enhancements that are desired, I believe that the board and the district administrators can be more creative in soliciting grant funding to provide services and equipment to students who are underserved in these areas. I will continue to advocate for best services.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wallach?
Storage capacity, which is low for the district, is is like infrastructure repair. You don't bother about it until you have a crash or something like that. So I'm very much in favor of increasing the storage capacity for the teachers and in the district. I think that we do have a challenge that everybody really doesn't want to say. We don't have the money. And the bottom line is we don't. So what can we do to get around that? We can do some coordination with the towns, and we can also talk to RTP corporations where we hope we can make the liaisons that will help us solve these kinds of problems.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bedford?
One of the ways we try to see that the 970 plus students without high-speed internet have access is by placing computers in centers at South Estes, Hargraves, Trinity Court, and some of the other community centers around the town. We have provided loaner computers, but only reached about 48 families. The tough part is not the maintenance, but the actual fee for the high-speed internet each year. We're working to present to the towns a proposal to consider that as part of the infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Next question, let's start down here with Ms. Bedford and go the other way again. We've all heard the expression that it takes a village to raise a child. And many of us as parents know that this is really true. As an elected official, how do you see yourself in the role of making sure everyone in our community feels vested in the school system? What is the role of the school board in this? How can you help all parents know that the school system belongs to them? Ms. Bedford?
I think communication is the key service that the board depends upon to welcome parents. We depend upon our faculties and our principals at the building and site level to make sure that parents feel welcome, that they receive those communications from the teachers. The role of the school board generally is to set policy, to provide the bigger picture, the bigger budget aspects. But we also, by televising our meetings, by using our Connect Dead phone service, by helping with the website at the district, try to help communicate throughout the community. We meet with various groups, different Ministerial Alliance, Asian parents, special needs parents. Each board member is a liaison to different groups to try and help facilitate that communication, but it comes down to that one-to-one contact with each parent.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wallach?
The district had a strategic planning meeting about 2 weeks ago, and the overwhelming number of parents mentioned that they felt that they were shut out of the system, which was a very sad thing. What I would suggest is that the board is a bully pulpit. We should be promoting inclusion. We should be speaking out. What happens is we have it all written down. It's all written down in how we should be treating parents, but we don't do it. That's unfortunate, but we can help change that by speaking out on parents' behalf.
Thank you very much. Ms. Streeter?
We must continue to recognize and realize that all children have the potential to learn. All children have gifts. And the school district has to be committed to providing a basic education for all of our children. I believe that the school board can take the lead in recognizing that we must welcome parents and guardians and other family members who are vested in their children's lives, no matter what the economic status, no matter what the diversity. And if we can start by creating that welcoming atmosphere, everyone will be involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Burrows?
Thank you. I think I'm going to carry on a little bit where Annetta left off in terms of reaching out to parents who are intimidated by the schools because they didn't like school They're overwhelmed by things that they have to do. As chair of the Estes Hills SGC, I facilitated a subcommittee for parents of struggling students to think about ways to reach out. We had minority parent nights for all the minorities, and we also talked a lot about getting teachers to contact parents early in the year before they might have bad news to report, to get off to a positive start.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
So I do think the board should set an example, and I believe that we have in terms of the modes of communication and being the openness that the board has tried to set. It does come down to the schools and creating communities. The PTA and the Parent-Teacher Association and the school improvement teams are very essential in making that community happen. And there also should be outreach into the community in terms of relationships with community established organizations in the community and also support organizations.
Thank you very much. This next question, I'd like to start with Ms. Streeter and then go to Mr. Wallach. And then we'll come to Ms. Bedford and then go down to Mr. Kelly. So everybody gets a chance to speak first as best we can help it. I'm actually going to split this category into two separate questions. And these are questions about equity. Are tax dollars being used to create equity? Are expenditures in our schools equitable? How do you define equity? What are your strategies to achieve equity as far as each student getting what they need out of the school system? There are schools that get a lot of parental support and schools that don't. How can a school board recreate equity, or should a school board create some sense of equity for schools that don't get parental support? Ms. Streeter, you want to make a stab at this?
Thank you.
Are you sure?
There are many definitions of equity, and I think that in itself can be a challenge when you look at the delivery of services to students, is what defines equity. It can be related to financial resources. It can also be related to the level of volunteerism from parents and other community stakeholders. It can also be the implementation of best practices from teachers, so the delivery of the education itself. With our school district, we have recognized, the community has recognized and has indicated to us that education is important, and by doing that, parents and community stakeholders are willing to contribute more funding to provide services. It is related to the schools themselves to make sure that those best practices are provided to every student.
Thank you. Mr. Wallach.
I think that we need to increase the equity in schools, and I think that educational opportunity isn't the same, and it depends on which school you're in. So that I think that what we should be doing is figuring out where the resources are needed and then directing the resources in that direction. That's it?
Okay. Mr. Bedford? Ms. Bedford.
Thank you. I think our schools are funded equitably. We are trying now to look at allocating resources based on need. I have proposed, and the board has adopted, that we will have a committee look at redistricting, because part of the inequities arise when parents then exercise their rights for transfer and they go unchecked, and we end up with some haves and have-nots. So that I want to look at that and eliminate that.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
Well, I would just start by saying that I believe the mission of the school district is to make sure that every child reaches his or her potential, and that when we are able to do that, then we've reached equity. And what the way to do that is to assure that any barriers to reaching that potential are overcome through the school system, or partnering with the community. I also agree with James Zetta that there are issues related to how students are assigned to schools. We've looked at that in redistricting and taking into consideration SES and their achievement level. And the students who actually show up need to be balanced as opposed to those who are just assigned there.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
I think we also need to understand that this problem arises because of a much larger community challenge, rather, which is that we are growing very, very quickly, so that the schools, we're growing out of balance, and so we're always having to tinker with this. We don't have a lot of time to catch up. But I do think anything we can do to improve the balance of socioeconomic status at each school will help that. I think particularly with things like active people in PTAs and those kinds of things. So I think that's the direction we need to go to get at that.
Thank you very much. This next set of questions is a part of the equity issue. But I'll tell you, I moved here in 1991, and one of the first things I read was that there was a significant gap in scores and grades between African American students and the rest of the students. And here we are 16 years later still talking about the same thing. These questioners ask, how do we reduce and reverse persistent achievement gaps among children of color? Specify steps that the board can take to close the gaps. Do you believe there is an issue with racial discrimination within the district for staff and students? How can this issue be addressed? So what can we do to close this achievement gap? Mr. Wallach?
I think there are a number of things we can do to close the achievement gap, but one of the primary ones is to make sure that the resources follow the need. This is something that I said just a minute ago, and I want to reiterate that. It's very important that if you have areas or schools where there are issues, there are challenges, you need to put the resources in those schools to be able to help out the children. You need a district-wide plan. You need school plans. I could go on and on. If you go onto the internet, there are a ton of ideas that you can bring forth. I think one of the main ones is that the teachers and this district have to have high expectations for the children. Every child can learn. Every child should have the opportunity to learn. And if the teachers and the principals and the district administrators expect that from the children, it will happen. We have the talent, and we can put it to work, and I think that we will succeed.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford?
I think we need to start much younger with our first school partnership so that preschool does not have a wait list, so that we have the spaces for children early. I believe that our equity training has been valuable and that our principal walkthroughs to check on equity and to hold our staff accountable is the key essential element. I think each of our children need to experience rigor, relevance, and relationships in their educational day. Our high schools must be more nurturing. And most of all, that all children need to read well by the 3rd grade. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
I think that the prime way to approach any problem like this is to select the high-yield instructional methods that are evidence-based, and the district has been focusing on an instructional framework around what is called the professional learning communities, or PLCs, which changes the way that education is delivered from an individual approach to a team-based approach and monitors each child's progress on a very regular basis. And this implementation needs to be accelerated in our district. I also think that everyone needs to be reminded that we all have biases, and those need to be regularly addressed.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
One of the things that I bring from my field of teen pregnancy prevention is some thinking about students who are at risk of failure, or at risk of teen pregnancy, or at risk of juvenile delinquency, all those kinds of things. And I think the way to work with children who are going in that direction is to work with them more intensively. I think for the last 98 years we've had a school system that's very grade level oriented, and I think we need to feel free to more and more work with children individually and more intensively in programs, whether that's an after school or AVID or those kinds of things. I think that's our best bet.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter?
Educators and sociologists alike agree that there are a multitude of factors that can impact a child's academic success. We certainly would need more than 30 seconds to do that. One, that everyone at the school site as well as at district offices must be responsible for providing a basic education for the children. We must also recognize that we have to have in place clear objectives and be steadfast in monitoring programs for their success or their deficiency. We must also continue to advocate that parents be fully engaged and fully involved in their child's academic career. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question, we're going to talk about budgets. We'll start with Mr. Kelly and come down the line this way. Should the county manager be required to start with a budget that continues all current school programs? The manager's proposed budget this past year did not start with funding everything that was currently being funded. How do you propose we overcome the budget impasse we encounter yearly with the county commissioners? And what will you do to ensure there is sufficient funding to maintain our standards of education in Chapel Hill and Carrboro? Kind of complex, but let's talk about budgets, Mr. Kelly.
Very timely question. The school board has already engaged in some changes to the process by accelerating the timeline in which we develop our own budget for continuation. We've moved that up so that's before the commissioners' annual retreat, which I believe in January, so that they will have available the funding level that would need to continue services at the current level, would not take into consideration any advances. So I think good communication with the commissioners is important. I don't think it's the school district or the school board's role to mandate anything to the manager of the county. I think that is a bigger community discussion. It does obviously hit close to my heart in terms of where my priorities are, but I think that the overall discussion has to be a community-wide discussion about where our priorities are.
Thank you very much. Ms. Burrows?
I think that the schools have made a good faith effort to move up their budget process, and I think that's very helpful. I also think a lot of this comes down to early, frank communication, and I think building positive relationships. Since I've filed, I've actually met with 3 of the 5 county commissioners. I wanted to pick their brains for their wisdom about campaigns, but I also wanted to talk to them what will really make a difference in this annual dance that we do over the budget. And I think communication really is that thing. We all have the same constituents, and I think we can work together.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter?
As a school district, we must be mindful of the escalating financial burdens on counties and municipalities. The district is working very hard to create an opportunity to collaborate with the county commissioners very early. That is already in place, so I feel like overall parents and community leaders will feel better informed, as well as board members will be better informed about the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wallach?
We need to establish a working committee that works year-round with the county commissioners. Some of our staff and some of their staff are together. They report back to us on a quarterly basis so that we don't come to the end of the year and not know what's going on. We also need to work more closely with the towns to see what resources are potential to use from them, and they have done transportation route changes to help with some cost. We also should do a cost-benefit analysis, because if we can save money, we don't have to spend money. And the last thing I'd like to do is take more advantage of the human resources that are within our community.
Thank you. We'll go on to Ms. Bedford.
I think we need to advocate for school boards to have taxing authority. That'll be before the legislature this session. We need to, as a way to have additional funding, is have a very open discussion about a transfer tax or a sales tax. I think it's natural to have this tension between commissioners and school board members at this point. Mike's already elaborated on the changes in scheduling that our district has taken the lead on. At the same time, our board is evaluating programs, and we are looking at AG and FLES last year, science this year. We have participated in a fair funding committee between the 2 districts. And my time is up.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's start with Ms. Burrows this time. Would you be willing, as a school board member, to resist or even defy state or federal regulations that you believe to do more educational harm than good? Specifically, would you be willing to cut costs and forego federal dollars to reach children in a radically direct and personal way instead of teaching that is increasingly distant and standardized?
No.
You would not be willing to? Okay, thank you. Ms. Streeter?
loaded question.
Yeah.
What a loaded question.
Who wrote that?
As a board member, I would like to be completely informed about the pros and cons of a situation like that. I still will have at my utmost, as my utmost concern, the safety and welfare of children, and the educational opportunities that they have before them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wallach.
I think it's very important that we work as closely with the students as we possibly can, and what we see as in their best interest, we advocate for.
Thank you, Ms. Bedford.
The issue arose this spring in Virginia where some of the school districts were going to refuse to test their ESL students because after 2 years, how could they possibly be proficient? So I understand the issue. They did cave in. They did not proceed, and I think we need to work within the system, use our judges, use our court system as needed, use our lobby, David Price and our senators, to go around. But we have to comply with No Child Left Behind. We have to comply. We get a significant amount of federal dollars in our district that we cannot afford to give up.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, so about 3 to 4% of our budget comes from the federal government, and that would all be in jeopardy if we did not follow No Child Left Behind. I believe that the school board should model good behavior for our students, and that would not be the case, I think, if we defied the federal government. That said, we could have that choice, but I don't think we're going to go there. I do think that there will be changes in No Child Left Behind, and I think that the school board can and should serve a role in lobbying our federal legislators who we meet with once a year.
Thank you. Now, you said that was 2 to 3%?
3 to 4.
3 to 4% of our budget comes from federal dollars.
That's about right.
That doesn't sound horribly like a lot. How much money is that?
The total budget is about $110 million. So it's
54 million's local.
So it's several $1 million.
Okay. The next set of questions here. Let's see. We are talking about shared facilities and finding land for schools. So we'll start with Ms. Bedford and go down the other way. Building land for school is becoming more difficult to locate. Now, the town of Chapel Hill has a provision allowing for the identification of future school sites in the town's master plan. Do you think that's a good idea, and should that also be instituted in Carborough? What should the school system do if they can't find the necessary land to build new schools on? And says the schools and towns have long partnered on a number of facilities for shared use, such as the community gym at Rashkus. What is your position on partnering with the school district on shared facilities? Let's start with Ms. Bedford.
Yes, I definitely support working with our municipalities to locate land. We have already sent a letter in collaboration. Every 2 months, the chairs of the Orange County Board, our board, and the commissioners meet, and to all the municipalities asking for their assistance in this, noting that we might not have the money to actually bank that land right now, but we need to identify sites. We have sent a letter to Carolina North, to UNC, requesting that in this first phase that at least 1, if not 2, school sites are reserved. They have agreed. We are currently just beginning talks with the Art Center about their new big project, and would that be an appropriate alternative type of school? And I don't know at what grade level. It's very preliminary. Certainly support shared use. I'm very disappointed that Carborough cannot afford to contribute to the community gym at elementary number 10. That's an opportunity that's gone for the next 100 years. And as we build middle school 5 out there, though, in the next 10 years, that will give us another opportunity. But it's those elementary schools that have less use after hours that the community can use them.
Mr. Kelly?
James Etta did a very good job. I support Carborough adopting an ordinance that would allow us to identify school sites. We do that with Chapel Hill. It gives us an 18-month window. We can also use eminent domain if necessary, which we did for Carborough High School. I support partnering with the towns for shared use facilities, and Carborough can start planning for elementary number 11 in 2010 approximately, which will come before middle school number 5.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
I think collaboration is the operative word here, whether it's with the towns or with the counties. I know that the the school boards and the county leaders will be talking about this in their collaboration work group over the next several months, but it's the only way. There are many urban areas in our country. I think we'll be able to find ways of sharing resources and facilities to make this work, but it won't always be smooth, but I think we can do it. Thank you, Ms. Streeter.
I'm very excited about the work that's already been done between the school board and the county and both municipalities, so I'm interested in continuing that collaborative work. I do support continued shared facilities throughout the community, and I am also willing to consider non-traditional school settings as long as it does not strategically segregate students and harm their academic success or their opportunities for academic success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallach.
You all have given great answers. I support everything you've said. I'd like to add one extra thing. There are places where developers are asked to donate a portion of the land that they use for a school. The idea is if you bring people into an area, they're going to be children, you need to have space for a school, and that's one of the things I think we ought to be considering.
Thank you very much. We're going to give you all a little more time. We're going to give you 90 seconds for the first person and then 60 seconds for everybody else because you're saying such interesting things. We want to talk about the school's adequate public facilities ordinance. It's generally referred to as SAPFO, but so everybody knows what we're talking about, it's the school's adequate public facilities ordinance that was passed a few years ago. Growth of student enrollment has major impacts on the school district, including a $250 million 10-year capital investment plan, mostly for new facilities, and the upheaval of redistricting with the opening of each school. This adequate public facilities ordinance was designed primarily to assure that new schools were constructed to keep pace with development. It does not appear to be designed as a tool to regulate growth. If elected, what will be your approach to review of residential developments to minimize adverse impacts on schools? Are revisions to SAPFO needed? And let's start with Mr. Wallach.
I'd like to say I know a lot about this, but I don't know very much about it. What I do know is that there isn't a lot of land that's still available for building in Chapel Hill, so that the options in terms of our growth are somewhat limited. The other thing is that school boards have limited powers, so that while we might be able to support some of these issues, we don't make the determinations. They're out of our hands. We can lobby for them, and I think we probably would after a long discussion, but at the moment, it's not something that we can control.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford.
On September 27th, the full board of Orange County, the Education Board and our board and the county commissioners met, and we agreed that they would ask our collaboration committee to examine the thought, should we use SAPFO? Could it be used and designed to regulate growth? It was not, as you said, designed that way. I think even last year when we came to the point of halting and couldn't issue caps, came that close, we had to do a lot of community education, meet with the chamber, meet with businesses, meet with realtors. There's still a lot of education to do just so that our residents understand the basic fundamental agreement. It arose whether UNC is subject to SAPFO. Are they now a developer? And I hold that they are, with Carolina North, that they are subject to SAPFO. So I don't know yet, but we are beginning and starting that discussion.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kelly.
SAPFO is not a tool to regulate growth. The school boards have no authority outside of SAPFO or from any other source to regulate growth, but it does have a major negative impact on schools through the capital investments and also through the redistricting process and just breaking up communities. So it is something that I think our community does need to be discussing, and it does need to consider what the impacts on schools are. As James Etta has said, we have already started to take some steps to have discussions with the towns, the county, the other school system in the county, to try to see if there is a consensus to try to change SAPFO in a way that would make it a more regulatory tool or some other regulatory tool. In regards to SAPFO itself, I will vote to approve caps whenever there is adequate school facilities, but I will not vote to approve it outside of that.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows.
I think once again the schools are part of a larger puzzle, which is the growth issue. We're seeing it in water use. I think all of us got an email today about the impact of schools on open space, all those kinds of things. So clearly, I think this is a place where the schools can actually, and the school board can act as a bully pulpit in terms of educating the community about how growth impacts all of us, including the schools, and the need to grow. And the need to build new schools. I think it is definitely worth having a discussion with the county commissioners in the towns of tweaking SAPFO to perhaps maybe slow down growth. But I consider that a very preliminary position on that topic, and I do think the conversation needs to begin.
Thank you, Ms. Streeter. You wind up being last too much. We'll have to change this.
At our most recent joint board meeting, there were some positive things to come out of that meeting, including revisiting the ordinance, the details of it, and giving all of us an opportunity to learn what the original intent of the ordinance was. As a board member, I will continue to wholeheartedly listen to all of the facts regarding growth in this area, and also continue to educate myself about the details of unchecked growth in this area. And hopefully from that, some very positive dialogue will come, and as a school board, we will make the right decisions when it comes to providing facilities for our children.
Thank you. Let's go to Ms. Burrows.
I answered that one.
You did? Excuse me. We'll go the other way. Did everybody answer that? That was the end, so I was trying to start with Ms. Streeter the next time around, because we've left her out too much. This question is about our school district is spending millions of dollars every year to plan and build new schools. What can you do to assure that older facilities, to the greatest extent possible, are brought up to comparable standards of cleanliness, technological capabilities, and desirability in a learning and teaching site for both students and faculty? For instance, eliminating windowless classrooms, maybe eliminating trailers, making sure students who are in trailers have access to bathrooms and don't have to hike across campus to get to one. So what can we do to bring the older schools up to the same level as the newer schools that are being built, Ms. Streeter?
Well, to start, it may not be entirely possible to bring older schools up, but what we can do is maintain the character of those schools, and also put forth very strong efforts to make sure that in terms of technology, that there are adequate facilities. One of the challenges that comes with an older facility in terms of technology is that original spaces for wiring, things like that, are usually not adequate enough compared to a brand new structure that is from the ground up designed in such a way to be equipped for that type of technology. So that is a challenge with our older schools. The district is continuing to put forth efforts to make sure that those schools have minimum technology equipment, as well as equipment that enhances the instruction in terms of making the site desirable and ensuring that it's clean. I think that's those are operational details that start with our district offices. Our district offices in terms of what is expected of staff. And I also think in terms of the atmosphere being desirable for teachers, parents, and children, that it starts with the principal, it starts with the leadership, and it starts with that leadership will come the joy of being a part of that atmosphere, and that spreads to everyone around.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
I think Annette really just hit on something that I was about to say, which is that you need to have a baseline. This is an important question, and I'm not discounting it in terms of quality facilities and quality equipment. But I think in the end, it's the teacher in the classroom. It's going to make a difference for our children. And in the end, the principal who leads that school will inspire teachers to do the best they can. So I absolutely do believe the district needs to bring old schools up to par. When I was chair of the school governance committee, it was at Estes Hills, which is about to have its 50th anniversary next fall. So I understand the challenges of the old schools, but I also think we need to give credit where credit is due to excellent teachers and excellent principals. They make all the difference, and that's just a thought I wanted to reiterate.
Mr. Kelly?
I agree with Mia. I think the most important thing is what the child leaves the school with, not what's in the school. And there are some really great things happening in our older facilities. That said, there are some limitations of those facilities, and the school system has a capital improvement plan. It has scheduled out when those pieces of improvement need to be made, both renovations and also just new facilities. For example, the science labs at Culbreth are really pretty minimal, and there are a number of other examples around our district. When the next bond comes up, which will have to come up relatively soon given all the schools we're going to be building, I think we should include in that proposal some capital money for the upkeep and improvement of the older schools, including the technology. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford?
Mike talked about our 10-year CIP capital improvement plan. We have actually invested over $10 million in Chapel Hill High School. You just can't see it because it's in the HVAC. But we have put some new windows in, and we are concerned about those older schools, but so health and safety is our first priority. Those have to be number one. We have renovated Phillips, FPG. We'll begin with Sewell next. We're moving into those schools from the 1970s. My personal priority, and I think the board agreed, was that the 5 older schools that don't have air conditioning in their cafeterias, that just needs to come first. That is just horrendous working conditions for those staff. As far as the technology, that there should be some parity there. That they have comparable budgets. The SIT can work on that. I know currently schools are working on trying to get projectors into classrooms and renovate those computers and replace those computers on a cycle that are older than 5 years. Time's up. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Wallach?
I think it's a question of priorities. I think that where you have the worst situations, you have to put the most money. I don't think it's fair for a child to be in a classroom where the wind is coming through the windows and they're actually cold during the day. That has an impact no matter how good the teachers are, and the teachers are doing a great job, but they're suffering too. But I think you have to put the emphasis on where the need is.
Thank you. Now, that's everybody for that question, right? I didn't leave anybody out this time. Let's start with Mr. Wallach and go down past Ms. Streeter. Historically, towns partnered with the schools on creating safe environments for children, such as after-school programs and stationing a police officer or a school resource officer in school buildings. While that partnership continues to the benefit of children and the entire community benefits from reduced crime rates, the costs have largely been shifted to the schools. What is your opinion on the shared responsibility of towns to fund programs that help achieve town functions?
I think that the towns have a responsibility to do it. I think we live in a community. It's a community where we look around us and we think, this should be a safe place. It should be a safe place in town. It should be a safe place in our neighborhoods, and it should be a safe place in schools. That's not an issue that should be foisted solely on the schools. We have to work very closely with the towns. We have to work with them to get the money to share the costs of the kinds of security and safety issues that we need to deal with.
Thank you, Ms. Bedford.
I think it is a shame that they don't pay for the crossing guards and the SROs any longer, but it's consistent now between Chapel Hill and Carrboro. It's more annoying to me that they hit us with that water runoff fee. In addition, it's $80,000 a year. At the same time, they're facing the same fiscal restraints that we do, the same tightening. It's all our same tax dollars. The state is pushing more and more of the funding needs to the county, so we're seeing it spread across at the county level. We do need to partner with our towns. They certainly have supported us with transportation and the buses. We have worked together very closely with Parks and Recs. departments. So they have assisted us with the in the housing projects with the community centers. So it's some give and take there. I think we can all do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
I do think that we need to talk more to the towns about these issues. The pendulum has been, in my opinion, has been swinging too much towards the schools providing this and not as much from the towns. There was a discordance between the Chapel Hill and Carrboro in terms of what each town was providing, but now when they're providing nothing in terms of the school resource officers and the crossing guards, it really is not the place where we wanted it to end up. And I think the other area that you mentioned was the runoff fee, and then there was one other one after
Parks
that.
and Rec?
Parks and no
Transportation.
Never mind. So I do think we need to talk more with the towns about these issues. Oh, the after-school program, that in particular, I think, is an area where we need to talk to the towns because the school district is having difficulty funding that, and that has a major impact on the entire community, and I don't think that it should just be the school system addressing that.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
I think this is a case where maybe it's nice not to be an incumbent because I haven't gotten territorial yet over who pays for what. I feel as though we're all taxpayers into all these systems, and I'm not being critical. I'm just saying my point of view is that, yeah, the schools are paying for school resource officers, but as James said, the towns may be helping with transportation. I would just caution a lot of care in these kinds of conversations to keep building a relationship that says we're all in this together and we're moving forward, and maybe not get too particular over the give and take over the budget. I will say, though, just on a tangent, since I seem to have time, is that after school is critical, and somehow, whether it's with the towns or through the county, we really do need to find a way to make that happen. Those programs can really make a big difference for children at risk.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter?
Thank you. I do support programs for children that enhance their academic experience, provide a safe haven for them, and also provide quality enrichment for them. Recognizing that there are continuing financial restraints for all governmental entities, including ours, I think the time is now that we work on collaborating with other governmental entities to look at creatively ways that we can fund these types of programs, whether it be increasing our efforts in soliciting grants or even partnering with corporate entities that have education and safety as its focus for children. Thank you.
Speaking of education and safety for our children, let's start with Ms. Burrows and come towards Ms. Streeter this time around. This questioner asks specifically about working with the high schools to make sure the hallways and bathrooms are safe. My teenagers and their friends have told me numerous times over the last few years of situations where the bathrooms and certain hallways are known to be controlled by students who deal drugs or are involved with gangs. So, how do we ensure the safety of our high school students? And what kind of programs do we need to reduce or eliminate or prevent gangs from forming within our schools? Ms. Burrows?
Well, that's a big and long and complicated question because you have the issues of just on-the-ground security. And I certainly know from my child who's at East Chapel Hill that there's been a lot of effort made about security in terms of people coming from the outside in. I have to say that this is the first I've heard of this extent of danger within the school. So I would want to gather a whole lot more facts before I develop a suggestion as to what to do about it. In terms of gangs in general, I know that the police department here has been really working on identifying, potential gang wannabes. I know that we've had issues even down to the middle schools, and that there's been a lot of collaboration between the schools and the police departments on trying to deal with that. I think the ultimate thing you have to do, and this is where the schools can make a huge difference, is you have to give children a hope for the future, and you have to give them a sense of community to prevent them from wanting to be in a gang, to have them have something to feel like they're going to have something to lose if they join a gang or do a crime or become pregnant or any of those kinds of things. And that if we're doing our job right as an educational body in the early years, I really think that that will make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ms. Streeter?
It's certainly disheartening to hear of situations like this in our schools. For many of the students, for all of the students, the school setting should be a safe haven for them and primarily an opportunity for learning, for instruction. I do support providing resources, equipment, and staffing to ensure that the schools are secure during the school day and during after-school activities as well. I also feel like there is a piece related to the students themselves. We want to provide opportunities in terms of their high school experience, that it's engaging for them, that provides an opportunity for them to do something other than the activity that they're involved in. As a board, we want to be persistent in having our district administrators to monitor those situations and educate us on that.
Thank you. Mr. Wallach?
I was walking through Carborough High today, and one of the wonderful things that you see is how clean, new, fresh, and terrific it is. And the fact that there are 37 different cameras that monitor everything that goes on, and the doors lock after the children come in the morning, so you can't go out and come back very easily. And I think these are all wonderful safety measures, but I think the key to this kind of issue is student involvement. The more we can have our students involved in positive things that are interesting to them, things that get their attention, the better chance we have of keeping them happy, safe, and free from gangs.
Ms. Bedford?
I think this comes down to the very core culture and climate at our high schools. And I think our principals are responsible and need to be held responsible for setting that climate. Clearly, we need more adult and teacher supervision. We need to encourage our students to tell. Most students who are engaged in drugs, gangs, or other violence advertise it in some ways, and the students know in advance, and so they need to be encouraged to go to the principal, to go to the SRO, and then as a board we must make sure that that principal responds. Each school in our district has a hotline. I think there were only 2 or 3 calls last year, so we need to advertise that more, make sure that parents and students are aware that they can anonymously call that hotline.
This is the first I've ever heard of that.
It was new last year, and my time is up.
That's the first I've ever heard of that. Let's go on and talk about how standardized testing dictates the order in which subjects are taught in the school, including enrichment topics. Are you in favor of giving teachers more flexibility in the way they teach their class than is afforded by standardized testing? Did you all hear? Was that clear?
Did you say the order?
The order and the amount of time given to each little subject matter on their agenda, other than that which is allowed to them by standardized testing. Mr. Kelly, you have some experience with this?
So first of all, I think it's standardized curriculum, and
okay,
not necessarily standardized testing. The testing should reflect what is to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
There is a standard curriculum. The North Carolina Standard Course of Study. We are required to teach that. Teachers are free, as far as I know, and I would support this, to teach anything above, beyond, outside of that, as long as the core curriculum is taught and taught well. We do need to have some standardization, and that standardization allows for efficiencies. It allows for teachers to be able to teach on teams. It's part of the professional learning communities that they are able to establish common evaluations for students and to be able to measure what is actually being learned. It in some ways does have a flattening effect on what is taught and what is tested. And I think there are opportunities to have periods of time where the teacher can go and be more creative in terms of what they teach.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows?
A couple of things about that. just standardized testing in general. I think it's a mixed bag. I think perhaps it has done some, I think the word Mike used was flattening for the teachers. But I think also it's told us something very, very important, which is that our subgroups, many of our subgroups in our schools are not performing at the level that we might have thought when we were looking at all the data together. Subgroups meaning minorities, economically disadvantaged, and so forth. So I think that we have to take the good with the bad with standardized testing. I'm amazed that we've actually gotten halfway through this, and I don't think anybody's talked about professional learning communities in detail. That is something that the district started about 1.5 years ago, and I think is absolutely wonderful and should continue, and I believe at least the incumbents are into it. It allows for teachers to work together much more carefully, and I think that together they can be creative. They can brainstorm and put the creativity there as opposed to into the curriculum.
Okay. Ms. Streeter.
The North Carolina Standard Course of Study is a very comprehensive and detailed look at what a child should learn in a certain time period. I know that I realize that it's not a perfect guide, but for the type of guide that it is, I think it can serve a very positive purpose for teachers and for students. I do support having a core curriculum, and I do support a teacher's opportunity to enhance that core curriculum because enrichment for the student just provides an opportunity for them to grow. I also support a core curriculum that is preparatory for the next grade level or the next academic opportunity for the child. It's very important to me that we have both formative evaluation tools and summative evaluation tools, and professional learning communities has allowed schools and teachers to begin to really look at that to ensure academic success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wallach.
In agreement with the people who have spoken prior to me, tests and curriculum are good and they're bad, and I think the key to working in a very structured curriculum is interest. If you have interesting presentations, if you have students who become engaged in what's being taught, then the fact that it's a standardized curriculum or that there's a test at the end of it is a lot less significant than the fact that the student has something that he's interested in or she's interested in and that she's learning the subject matter. And at the end, we have some standards which will help us figure out where we have to go next. Because as someone else said, we can't really figure out how everybody's doing unless we have the standardized test.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford.
I think the standardized testing on the one hand has exposed where our district is not the best in the state, and that there are subgroups that we are not anywhere near the top. And it does make our teachers focus on the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. At the same time, I'm very worried that many of them are not teaching science or social studies, and that these literacy collaborative blocks of time and the state mandating the physical activity, which I again support, but they don't give us additional funding or additional time in the day, makes it very difficult to cover that standard of course of study. I think Carborough Elementary School, with their dual language program, because they teach half of the day in English and half of the day in Spanish, therefore must integrate science into that basic curriculum and use a lot of nonfiction textbooks, that they are on the right track, that you have to integrate these other enriching areas into your language learning and your mathematics. Mathematics is becoming a reading test, so it has to be relevant. And once again, I'm out of time.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Ms. Streeter this time. The district recently changed from school governance councils or committees to school improvement teams that participate in the governance of the school. What do you think is the proper role of the school improvement team, and how much power do you believe the school improvement team should have in school administration?
Thank you. The school improvement team, I think the words reflect a lot about its role. It is an advisory group composed of parents, certified staff and classified staff, as well as local administrators, and at some school levels, students. And they are charged with developing a school improvement plan and also making recommendations to the school administrators about concerns and issues related to student achievement, student welfare, and the overall atmosphere of the school. I know that it was somewhat disheartening to some community stakeholders. With the name change came a reduction in the role of the governance committee as it historically was, but that's really not the case. The principals and other district administrators still are interested in what parents and students have to say about the school environment and the issues surrounding academic achievement. They are also interested in hearing their concerns related to budgetary issues and concerns. The SIT, or School Improvement Team, also has the opportunity to advocate for its local schools and services to our governmental entities. So those roles have not changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Ms. Burrows.
I actually had the pleasure of serving on the committee, I think with Ms. Streeter, last year that reviewed and it recommended to the board the switch from the School Governance Committee to the School Improvement Team. I think a lot of what that was about was reducing some confusion as to who ultimately was in charge at the school building level. I think it makes it absolutely clear now that the principal is accountable in the end, that they're the employee and that they're accountable. So I think it clarified something important there. What I think is interesting about this, though, a very good principal, I believe, will still rely heavily on their school improvement team to get their feedback, to get their advice. And so I think in schools where the principal is doing a good job, the SIT will still continue to have quite a bit of input.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
So the history is, as has been stated earlier, is that the school improvement team is something that's mandated by the state that writes the school improvement plan. And we had a different structure that antedated the development of school improvement teams. It's called the School Governance Committee, and what happened really was a merging of those two functions into one body, which is appropriately called the School Improvement Team now. But the makeup of that body has changed a little bit, but not very dramatically, and its function, I think, still is pretty similar to what it was under the old name. A much more ancient history to this is that the site-based management has really pretty much gone away, and that really was now probably a decade old, that transition. But the school improvement team is a way that the community can take ownership for the school, be involved in it. I support it being there, but it does mean that the district employees are still the people who are ultimately responsible.
Thank you, Ms. Bedford.
Yes, site-based management and governance since 1992 had then slowly shifted so that we wanted to have more consistency across the district for equity and for opportunity. Now, I have to say, it was a 6-to-1 vote, and I'm the one vote that voted against this change, not because I didn't want to align it with the state regulations, but because I think it really does take that parents have no power now. That before you had even numbers of administrators and parents, and I think it was very beneficial for a principal, to have to present that budget in August to each one of those school governance committees and get that approval so that at least, whether it was 6 and 6 or 5 and 5, that there were parents as well as faculty members and classified staff who understood that and could argue and advocate one way or the other. But we are holding principals accountable. I will certainly support the change, and I'm out of time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallach.
I was on the school governance committee at Frank Porter Graham, along with Annetta, actually. She was chairing it. Wonderful job. And I think that I'm a little saddened about the reduced role of the parent. I think that it's great to have a collaborative relationship, and I think that the SITs have that. But the bottom line is that the district doesn't have a reputation for including parents. Parents are often shut out. And the problem, and we know this from coming to meetings and talking to the board members, the problem is that now with the SIT, we have them shut out one step farther. And I think they have a unique perspective that's a valuable perspective that should have a bit more influence in the education of their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about gifted education in our school system, and we'll start with Mr. Wallach and go to Ms. Streeter. Do you believe the gifted education plan adopted last year is adequately addressing the needs of academically gifted children in the district? Specifically, the lack of direct services now adopted district-wide to serve gifted children. So do you think the district is allocating too much, too little, or the appropriate amount of resources to gifted children?
And I've got 90 seconds to answer this?
Yes. You have to be very gifted to answer this question.
Well, I think one of the things that really impressed me about the system is setting up the academies. And I think that the academies, while this is not necessarily directly related to gifted students, I think that they will take advantage of these, and I think that that was a really interesting and profound step in a very good direction. I think the services that are being offered are appropriate, and when I hear the other answers, I'll know more.
Ms. Streeter?
The recent recommendations that came from AIG Services was, to me, very complicated, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. We do have a very diverse population, including a diverse population of very gifted students. I don't have recent statistical data, but I think that there are probably close to 40% or even more students identified as gifted in our school district. So that's a lot of students to serve. So the report and the services that come from the report or the document have to be very detailed. Whether they are currently meeting the needs of students, I can't completely answer that question. I think you have to look at each student and their gifted education plan. I also think that you need to be aware of providing a strong professional development for teachers so that they can provide those services to students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows.
Well, I think it's absolutely critical that we meet children where they are academically and move them forward. We should have no room for children stagnating from year to year in the district. What I will say, though, I do think, again, almost being the board's cheerleader, is that the professional learning community is really maybe taking a step in the right direction on this, as well as many other things. I spoke to an academically gifted teacher at one of our elementary schools, and she is just brimming with excitement about how she can better help groups across grade levels of teachers and provide them together as they plan as a group and do their common assessments and so forth, to have the activities so that they're working as a team. There's a lot of energy in that, and she was very excited about that. And that works along the model of not having gifted teachers in the classroom, but working more with the teachers. So I was very pleased, since that, in fact, is the direction the district's been going, that one of the staff people in charge of implementing that is very excited about it. And I also just want to mention that I think that the gifted plan was a 3-year plan and was passed unanimously last year. So I'm guessing we might actually have a little balance on this one for now.
Okay. And Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, so about a third of students in our district are identified as academically gifted. It's sort of like Lake Wobegon in that regard, because that's a huge percentage for any district. There have been a number of reviews. As I said in my opening statement, the gifted plan was revised twice during my 4 years. And we did undergo a program review. That program review suggested that there be additional positions for the gifted specialists. We weren't able to put that in the budget. I think that's a major limitation. The gifted specialists, as Mia suggested, provide most of their services to teachers, not to students. I personally don't think that that's an effective way of teaching children. I think that you have to talk to children to teach them well, and I understand that there's some differences. Our district is using a proficiency model mandated by the No Child Left Behind. That does not benefit gifted children because they're already above these levels, far above that level. The state is moving towards a growth plan, and I support that.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford?
Because our budget did not allow us to fully allocate the gifted specialists, I think that their use of the PLC model, where they work with grade levels at the elementary level and subject content area or teams at the middle school level, helps to some degree. But the training for differentiation and the implementation of the plan, I cannot say that they are adequate. It all comes down to the classroom teacher. If your child has a master teacher, they are going to do this. They are going to serve all of the children well. If you have a beginner, it's going to be very difficult for them to teach all children well and be able to differentiate, be able to really meet every child's needs. And of course, we do assign mentors. We do have a PAR. And I'm sorry, I don't know what that acronym starts for or means, but it's teachers who help others professionally, and they rotate every 2 or 3 years. But I don't have a better plan.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to track kids.
Okay, well, let's go on talking about teachers some more. So what is the best way for the school board to support our teachers? Taking into account the fact that they are one of the most important factors in quality education, what can you, as part of the school board, do to attract and maintain quality teachers in our district? Surveys indicate over and over that planning time is a major issue for our teachers. Should teacher work days be restored with appropriate compensation for them? And let's start with Ms. Burrows.
All right, you caught me first, so I can't write any more notes as to what I'm going to say, so I have to wing it now. Planning time is an interesting issue. 2 things about that. First of all, I totally agree. The teachers are the critical resource in our schools, and we must treat them as treasured professionals and recognize what a difference they can make for our children. Planning time has been an issue, although I think that the current board, or perhaps the group before them, did implement delay days, which is improved the planning time crunch, particularly at the elementary level, where I think planning time has been most scarce. In terms of the increasing the teacher work days, that would take an act of the North Carolina General Assembly, I believe, because they limited the school year in order to please some of the tourism industry in the summer, to increase the length of the summer. So nonetheless, I think the most important thing is not only do we treat teachers like professionals, we give them pay that equals their value as best we can. The state's been increasing salaries. I believe we've matched that for our locally funded employees, and we do anything else we can to make them sure that they know that we know what a difference they make.
Ms. Streeter.
I do support increasing professional development for our teachers for a variety of different needs so that they can be successful in providing quality instruction to students. For our new hires, I believe that the mentoring process should be very intense for the new hires, at least a year, maybe even more than a year, so that they have a connection to a more seasoned faculty member to ease that transition and to also provide a high level of support when it comes to implementing best practices. I also support increasing our efforts to advocate for a change in the legislation so that school districts can create a schedule that is optimum for their students. I also would like to see increased hiring and retention of diverse teachers and administrators, because I believe that that's a key piece to increasing minority student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wallach?
I agree with all the things that were said previously, but I'd like to add some as well. Obviously, we pay as best we can. We give them time, but we also need to give them recognition, because one of the things that goes a long way is telling somebody that they're doing a good job and then showing them that you actually mean that they're doing a good job and supporting them. For new teachers, the mentoring idea is critical, and the PLCs are extremely important because it gives teachers an opportunity to share ideas and to work together in a collaborative way that they haven't had a chance to in the past. What's interesting is that the turnover rate in the elementary schools here is about 17% compared to the state rate of 14%. In the middle schools and in the high schools, we're actually less than the state rate. So something is happening in the elementary schools that we need to take a closer look at. And as a board member, I would advocate for doing that.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford.
I also agree with what's already been said. I do think that letting our teachers actually have differentiated staff development so that they are not sitting through something they sat through 10 years ago and they already know, but can actually pick development that's appropriate to them is very important. I think we have to listen to them more. And when there is trouble in the classroom, there are times when we need to shelter them from some of our parents. And the principal needs to do that a little quicker. We had a committee 2 years ago that worked on that. We have booklets for each school that, you have 48 hours to respond to emails. That, it doesn't have to be that same second hour. And the delayed openings are our best way so far to give them some additional time since the calendar law went into effect that eliminated 5 work days. Our local supplement, that's how we retain teachers. We pay best in the later years than any other district in the state, although we'll be looking at that. And while we pay signing bonuses for hard-to-reach areas, I'm wondering if we shouldn't be paying retention bonuses.
Mr. Kelly.
They've covered almost everything. I would just echo that the teachers are the most important. I hear many fewer comments about the full plate syndrome, which is essentially the teachers have too much to do. They're given too many administrative tasks. I think we've tried to address that as best we could, despite having 5 fewer planning days, which is a state law, that we cannot put those back into the calendar without a state act. We are on record as a board of supporting return of those 5 days, and we talk with our legislative representatives on a yearly basis about that issue. The delayed opening has helped with that. I agree we have to listen more to our teachers. We have surveys, annual surveys. We look at that by school. We look at that in a number of different ways that has helped to reduce our teacher turnover rate to actually the lowest it's been in a long time. It's now significantly, as a district, is significantly below our student turnover rate and about half of what it peaked about 5 or 6 years ago.
Thank you. I'd like to start with Mr. Kelly this time, and I'll give you an extra few seconds for an explanation of this. This questioner asks, what should we do with the middle college? So for those of our viewers who are not familiar with middle college, if you can take a few seconds to explain that, then I won't chop you off, okay?
Okay. So
thank you, sir.
So Middle College High School is its official name. It's located at Durham Technical Community College. It's a joint venture between our school system, Orange County Schools, and Durham Public Schools. And it was started 2.5 years ago as that joint venture. It's for students who are entering the 11th grade. They spend 2 years there. They're able to earn college credits for half the day, and the other half the day they can take high school courses. It is not for students who are necessarily at the greatest risk of dropping out of school, but it's for students who maybe want a little bit different type of environment in which to learn. I think it's a great program. The problem that I perceive is that it's far away, and our students simply have not chosen to go there in numbers that are very large. So this year we have 13 students there, and I'm not sure what exactly the number that we spend on the program, but it's pretty high. Originally, I believe it was $50,000 a year, and then $100,000 a year after it went up to in its second year. This is the first year that the state will start paying for the principal, so that may decrease the cost to our district, but it is something that I think we have to seriously look at whether we want to continue this program. I think it has educational value. I'm just not sure it's cost effective for us.
Okay. Ms. Burrows?
I heard some discussion about this at the joint meeting between the school boards and the county commissioners, and was interested to hear. I had not realized that the numbers were as low as they were. What I wondered about, and perhaps one of the incumbents can fill me in on this as much as everybody else, is what the future holds when the Durham Tech campus opens closer to us. I think that will be close to Hillsborough, and that may improve the appeal because it'll be closer to us. I think it's wonderful to have an extra option. I know of kids who've gone ahead on their own and gone to Alamance Community College instead of finishing with the district. And so for some kids, that is an appealing option if we can make it closer. So clearly it's something I need to learn more about, and hopefully we'll learn more this very night.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter?
I do support the concept of middle college as an alternative high school setting for students. There are students who have a different motivation, who are self-initiated to pursue a different type of high school experience. So for whatever reason, they're not engaged in our traditional high school settings. Although enrollment has been low thus far, the small atmosphere, the small learning community that is provided, I think has been positive for most of the students who've been enrolled in the program. We do have to acknowledge that it's not necessarily a cost-effective program, and for a lot of the students it's not desirable, so recruiting has been a challenge at this point. But I will support continuing to look at this non-traditional, academic setting for the future of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallach.
I like what Mr. Kelly said. Oops. I like what Mr. Kelly said. I think that this is a program that needs to be reviewed. I think we need to look at the cost-benefit of it, and I think that the jury is out at the moment. But to have a program that we have 13 children at that's far away is questionable, even if it's worthwhile for the 13 children.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford?
The board will be examining this very issue before December, because if we're going to opt out, we have to do it by December to give notice, because the students are on a block schedule. And it will impact the Orange County schools. They have about the same number. And yet there's been steady growth with Durham. So some of the things I'll want to consider is looking particularly closely at those 13 students. Would they have graduated if it hadn't been for this program? Would they have been as successful? Would they have gone on to, these students go on, I went to their graduation, it was very moving, and they do go on to 4-year and 2-year colleges, and I think that's essential. So if they had stayed in our high schools, would they actually have made those next steps? It is very expensive, but it might be worth it. I think we need to have that principal give us the Connect Ed calls to students. We need to take the 8th graders to visit. It's too late by 11th grade. We need to be more flexible in the math requirements. And I'm asking that each high school newspaper send a reporter so that a student can report on what the day is like and influence their colleagues.
Thank you very much. It's bound to come up again in the not-too-distant future, probably during your next term of office, but the topic of school merger, merging the Chapel Hill City School District with the Orange County District. Give us maybe some pros and cons, what you think might be good, what might be bad. Ms. Bedford, we can start with you.
I'm opposed to school merger. I find that with our 11,000 students, if your child is an EC student, it's hard enough to get any recognition, to get the attention of the administration and the principals. And if we merge and we increase those numbers significantly, there just won't be that contact. The EC directors won't know who your child is. They won't know the parents.
What's EC?
Exceptional children. And that won't be just at that program, but at all program levels. We will simply, it won't save money, it'll cost more money. It might save some school construction funds, but as far as personnel, it won't. And I think it is equitable and it is fair for taxpayers who wish to pay more in taxes to do so. So I have a long record on this.
Thank you very
I'm pretty
much.
inflexible about it.
Mr. Wallach.
I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that what happens with the EC, the Exceptional Children's program as an example, cuts across the entire educational line, and it hits all the programs, so that whatever division you might be in, whatever subset you might be in, you wind up one step removed. And I just would not be in favor of a merger.
Thank you. Ms. Streeter.
I do not support merger for the purposes of trying to dilute the additional tax funding that comes from the residents of the Chapel Hill Carborough School District. I know efforts have been made in the past to try to do some type of collaboration between the two school systems for programs that are of interest for both school systems, but I think it would be a huge strain for district level programs in terms of transporting students and getting administrators and staff to those students. So that would be a great challenge. I think it's very desirable for us to have as small a community as possible, because the research has shown that children are most successful in a very small atmosphere in terms of students, and that one-on-one instruction is key to increasing academic success.
Thank you. Ms. Burrows.
Bigger isn't better. I also oppose merger and have for some time. I do think that this one may play itself out over many years, the long run, because I think as we move on and the county probably attracts more suburban kinds of housing and those kinds of things, the desires of both districts may become more similar. And so some of the tension between the willingness of the Chapel Hill Carborough taxpayers to pay more taxes and the Orange County's taxpayers not to pay taxes may even out. So maybe I'm being a Pollyanna, but I'd like to think that over very long run that this one may go away. What I do think we can collaborate on, though, with Orange County folk is, particularly school folk, is that we know how important it will be for the county commissioners to get support if they put something on the ballot in the spring, I believe, either a sales tax or a land transfer tax. I think both school boards and community members in favor of this, who support the schools will need to support the county together in a collaborative effort on that.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Well, I think there would be one great advantage to merging, and that is we could stop talking about it. But the problem with it is that it cuts to the core of a very basic democratic principle, and that is the right of self-determination. People in Chapel Hill Carborough like the school district that we have, and the people in Orange County like their school district. They don't want to pay more taxes, and forced merger would increase their taxes beyond their wildest nightmares on average. There is the possibility that the state would stop funding more than one local educational authority in each county. So if that happens, there would be an additional cost to our county of approximately $800,000, depending on when it was merged or when funding was taken away. So we might have to have this conversation again if the state ever came to that point. We have tried to collaborate with Orange County schools, and I think some of the previous comments are illustrated by the history of that collaboration, in that it was very, very difficult to get any children to participate in an educational program in the other district. Very difficult. No one wanted to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll start with you again, Mr. Kelly, on this question. So going to the future, what do you see as the biggest challenge to the school district, and how can you take steps to deal with it?
I think there are challenges in every area that we're going to face, but I think the one that we're going to be faced with mostly is to continue to accelerate the education for each child. That is my primary goal on being on the school board. I think that's my primary focus, and that will continue to be our primary challenge. There will be a number of other challenges that will have budgetary growth, all of these things, but they're really peripheral to the central issue of how do you teach children, how do you teach them well. And I think I'll just stop there.
Ms. Burrows.
I think the biggest challenge, as I've said before, overall is growth because it affects so many aspects of our community, not just the schools. I think growth makes it harder for us to achieve the other goals that we want to meet in terms of closing the minority achievement gap, in terms of creating total equity between the old and the new schools and those kinds of things. So I do think that it's a good thing that there seems to be a consensus that it's time to have a conversation with the county commissioners about thinking more broadly about how we can deal with growth.
Thank you, Ms. Streeter.
I think our greatest challenge will be increasing our efforts to promote an atmosphere of excellence in our community, in our school communities, educating our children. Providing that basic education as well as enhanced instruction are key for our future, really. Our future society depends on how we educate our children in terms of how we'll manage our natural resources, how we'll interact with the rest of the world, how we'll serve the elderly and the underprivileged, and also how we'll manage population and economic growth. So we have to ensure that our children leave our institutions well educated and prepared to be productive citizens in our communities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wallach.
I think funding is one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have in the future, now and in the future. The state has let the counties put various revenue sources on the ballot, and it will be coming up in May, and I think that the school board should be out front in leading the drive to make sure that that does get on the ballot and that it does get voted on, and hopefully we will wind up with more funding. I think accountability is critically important, and I support a review of the relationship between the district administration and the schools. Accountability for success needs to be strengthened. We cannot continue to have less than half of our elementary and middle schools meeting adequate yearly progress goals, and we need to create educational equity. It's only fair that a child who attends FPG have the same opportunities as a child who attends Rashkus. Teachers whose students present greater challenges deserve greater support, and I would urge the district to review its student distribution policies and allocate funding to help alleviate educational disparities.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford.
I think that student achievement is our biggest challenge, and you generally say that growth is because we're accustomed to housing growth, that we don't have an economic base that's realistic, so we rely upon property taxes to fund our schools. But across the state, and we see it certainly in our schools as well, as textiles and factory and manufacturing jobs disappear and the world becomes a global world, our students must be far, far better educated, each and every one of them. So we have to deal with the cost of school construction and growth so that we will have some additional dollars to direct to those students to make sure that they get that basic education, that they have what I hate to say are the 21st century skills, but so that they can use technology. They are certainly, these are the same skills, you know, from before Christ, that they can think creatively, that they understand problems and can solve problems and build our future.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to our closing remarks. So we'll start with Ms. Streeter. All right.
Thank you so much for agreeing to moderate the forum this evening. A special thanks to the PTA Council and the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. Let me start by saying that you, the citizens of Chapel Hill and Carrboro, should elect me if you want continued responsiveness to the issues that are important to you. If you want someone who is engaged in meaningful dialogue about the challenges facing the district, then you should elect me. If, as residents of this community, you want a proven leader who will advocate for effective instruction that allows children to grow into happy, well-rounded, productive citizens, then you should elect me. If you want to increase our efforts in monitoring programs, continuing to advocate for increased collaboration among teachers, then you should elect me. If you want to see the district hire and retain significant numbers of diverse teachers and administrators, then you should elect me. If you, the citizens of Chapel Hill and Carrboro, want a leader who will advocate for increased funding of professional development, then you should elect me. Thank you again for this opportunity, and I would appreciate your vote on November the 6th.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows.
This district is faced with the challenge of helping all students achieve to their potential while it copes with the demands of rapidly growing student population. I've had a 20-year career working for youth policy and youth-serving agencies, 10 years volunteering in our classrooms, and 4 years advocating for students at the district, county, and state levels. I'll use my listening and communication and advocacy skills to ensure that the school board and the county work in concert to make sure our students are maximizing their potential. I'm someone who truly wants to hear from folks because engaging in dialogue is the way I learn best. If you want to share your thoughts, I encourage you to pick up one of my brochures with my contact information, or if you're watching on TV, my website is www.miaburrows.com. You can see how to spell it on my signs, which are all over town. Anyway, I really would welcome your emails and calls. And, of course, on November 6th, I will welcome your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
It's been an honor and a great privilege to serve on this board for 4 years. I have a major focus on achieving and increasing student achievement. I also am focused on other priorities in the district, including budget and growth, and I'd appreciate your support to allow me to continue to work on those.
Thank you. Ms. Bedford.
Thank you for hosting this event and for those watching. I hope that I have earned your vote. I would like to serve this community for 4 more years. As a CPA, I bring additional financial expertise to the board. As a parent of 3 who vary from the eldest who just began med school to my 20-year-old daughter who is severe autism and mental retardation and lives in a state-run group home, to my 16-year-old wonderfully average high school, and I don't have cable TV, so I can openly say that. I recognize that fair and equitable does not mean the same exact thing for every child, that one size does not fit all. I am concerned not only about academic achievement, but also about the social, emotional development of our children and their physical health and their mental health. I will advocate for all children and for our staff, and I'd appreciate your vote on November 6th.
Thank you, and I hate to tell you that they may wind up having this forum posted on the internet, so you better disconnect your cable.
Disconnect the boy.
Mr. Wallach.
Get the new iPod quick.
Thank you. I have appreciated this opportunity to share my thoughts and beliefs with you. My 25 years of nonprofit management experience, my advocacy work on behalf of poor and underserved groups, my volunteer work in and out of our schools, and finally my classroom experience uniquely qualify me for a position on the school board. If you believe that more top-level accountability is needed in the district, that we actually should do what we say we will do, if you believe that we can spend the money we have more wisely, that we can bring in more resources, and that we should work more closely throughout the year with the county commissioners, the town council, and the town aldermen. If you believe that educational fairness is important and that equal opportunities must be provided to all the students in the district. And finally, if you believe that parents can and should be a part of their child's education, I ask you to support me in my bid for a seat on the Chapel Hill Carrboro City School Boards of Education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all of you coming tonight. I know it takes quite a lot of time to do all of these forums, and we appreciate that you all will do this for the good of your community. Thank all of you for coming tonight. In addition, thank you, audience, for being here and for watching at home. And we'd like to thank our lovely runner, Kaylee Peters, who's up there smiling at everybody. And thank our producer, Dan Overby, who promised special lighting tonight that would make all of us look strong, good-looking, and above average. And many thanks to all of the PTA members who actually did all of the planning for this. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to thank Charlie Buckner and Mark Terhorst, Aaron Bonavides, Jane Kerwin-Frederick, and Mr. Mark Peters, who's going to make a few closing remarks.
Thank you, Vicki, and thanks to the school board candidates for coming tonight and the volunteers. I just want to remind everybody there are 5 candidates running for 4 Board of Education seats. The date of the municipal election is November 6th, and it's from 6:30 a.m. until 7:30 a.m. There's early voting in 3 locations, and you want to check the county website for the times because they're just all over the map. But essentially, I'll give you the start dates. In the Orange County Public Library Conference Room, 300 West Tryon Street in Hillsborough, Thursday, October 18th is the starting date. Anybody can vote at any one of those locations. So though that is outside the Chapel Hill District, I believe that everyone can go to any one of these super sites and vote. The Carrboro Town Hall, 301 West Main Street in Carrboro, starting Monday, October 22nd, and the Chapel Hill Post Office at 179 East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill on Monday, October 22nd is the start date. All right, thank you.